tried to fend the man off, but the man held on. And so Grendel slammed back against the wall, knocking loose shields. But the man jumped out of the way so as not to be crushed. And then Grendel realized it was time to run. And so he charged toward the door.
Bodkin is a storyteller. His craft, honed over decades, centers around telling fantastical stories in a live setting, typically accompanied by music he plays on his Celtic harp or 12-string guitar. Over his career, Bodkin's art has taken him to places such as the White House and Lincoln Center. He has also led him to form a special relationship with the Harvard Square restaurant and bar, Grendel's Den, which has served as a venue for many of his performances.
I used to live in Manhattan and taught children nature concepts in the north end of Central Park. And while I was doing the science, I discovered that if I told them a story, they listened much more closely than they did to my scientific information. And so I said, well, this is very interesting. What kind of attention is this? And so proceeded to try my hand at it and learn with a very few simple stories, and now end up telling a version of the Odyssey. It's 4 hours long, all manner of different tales.
Bodkin is particularly interested in mythic stories, and stories featuring mythic themes are an important part of his repertoire.
Myths are a certain deep archetypal structure that lives in everyone's minds, and it's as if we're all just waiting to be reacquainted with these giant stories. Many of them come from long, long ago. I've written a few modern novels, but these old mythic tales are the ones that, for performance purposes, I think are the most effective. At least it's what I know how to do.
Bodkin's performances typically feature musical accompaniment on the Celtic harp or the 12-string guitar, which he uses to elevate the emotions of the stories he tells.
When I was in college, I made a great mistake. I bought a 12-string guitar, and I absolutely fell in love with 12-string guitars. And so long before I began to tell stories, I just sat around and composed music. I just make up my own music as I go. I hear a lot of music in my mind, and it's very easy to dream up fresh melodies all the time and then to remember how to play them. So I was doing that for a while and, sang some songs and wrote some songs and did that usual singer-songwriter thing that young guys do. But then about the age of 29, I had an epiphany and I realized, gosh, everybody does that, but I could tell stories and use the music that I've created as a kind of orchestral score to go with the stories. And that might prove to be a fairly entertaining experience for other folks.
Bodkin's relationship with Grendel's Den began several years ago when the owner of the establishment, Carrie Coulter, found out that Bodkin was going to perform a version of the Old English epic poem Beowulf. The name Grendel's Den was inspired by Beowulf, which features a fearsome monster called Grendel.
Beowulf, the hero himself, goes through a lifetime in that story. It's not just when he comes and slays Grendels. He does that when he's an 18-year-old lax bro. You know what I mean? He's just strong and on top of the world, and he's got this great bravado. But afterwards, he goes on to rule a kingdom, and he grows old, and then he finally again has to do battle against this dragon as an old man. And I'm at a time in my life where I can really relate to the transition. I really appreciate that story takes the hero from that youthful bravado to that role as a leader, and a leader who's ready for somebody to come and give him a break, take over for him.
It is really fun to imagine. Endorphins are released into the bloodstream when people imagine. they are free to create their own versions of whatever it is that I'm offering them, and have fun doing that. It's a highly creative entertainment form. If you watch a film, all the creativity is already in there. But when people listen to a story, they're able each individually to be their own movie makers. And I'm sort of their humble projector. I'll give hints and clues and feelings and statements, but people can do the movie making themselves. Well, you're very kind, and again, thank you for listening and going with me on this particular long journey.